Hi, welcome to Let's GTFO with Bethany and Jana. I'm Bethany.
And I'm Jana. Hey, y'all.
We are here today. We're very excited to have a friend of Jana's who she's going to introduce in a bit. We're going to be talking about passports by descent, but particularly for victims of the Nazi persecution. So, Jana, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, we're going to be speaking to Laura Moser. She indeed is a friend of mine. And I came across an article that she wrote in 2021 for the New Yorker. And I'm just going to read the title for you. It says, "My grandfather fled the Nazis. I moved to his old neighborhood. I was raised to believe that America was a haven for Jews, but that vision of safety seems illusory now." And I was actually just looking through related articles and saw that she was the writer, and I read the article. It was so incredibly moving. I knew that she was getting a German passport, but I sort of lost track of the fact that she moved to Berlin. Then I messaged her when I got to Amsterdam. I was like, "Hey, we should meet up." But I didn't realize she'd written this article, which was so moving and so beautiful. It really talks about her grandfather's story and about her family's story now going back to Berlin, decades after, what is it, about 7 decades after her grandfather left. He left in 1938, and she's back. So it brought up so many issues for me, the issue of feeling safe in your homeland. What did you think of the article, Bethany?
I thought it was really incredible. I think that a lot of us are sort of grappling with this question of returning to the land of our ancestors. And I think particularly for Jewish folks, and particularly for Jewish folks whose ancestors fled the Holocaust, it's just such a weird time, right? I have a lot of friends who are doing this, who are getting their German citizenship because it's one route available to them. We actually did a webinar a while back with Dieter Cole's first. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Something like
very, very sweet German lawyer gave us a lot of detail on the best citizenship in Germany. But it's an interesting struggle too, I think, for a lot of folks. I think we were talking about this as an issue in maybe Poland and Hungary, where because they destroyed so many of their documents, there's that additional hurdle of how do you prove that you were a citizen if your government is destroying your citizenship documents.
I mean, so many Americans come from Eastern Europe, or what we used to call Eastern Europe, and many of those countries are now in the EU. So that is potentially a path to EU citizenship. And in some countries, it's incredibly easy. Like Austria, you have to just have a reasonable history, and I think grandparents, right? Grandparents had to have fled the Nazis. And so in some countries it's easier, in some countries it's harder, like you said. But almost every country has some connection in Eastern Europe, some connection to the Holocaust. And there are many American Jewish people who can come to Europe as a result of ancestry. And we've had quite a few clients who are going to come to the Netherlands, but with a German passport or a Polish passport, or Slovakian or Slovenian, or a passport from many of the Eastern European countries. But they're not really choosing to go back to those countries, and I don't really blame them, probably for a lot of emotional reasons as well. But Laura did. She went back to Berlin. She could have gone anywhere, and she went to Berlin. So I'm really curious. I mean, the article sort of goes into some detail, and I strongly recommend you read the article. It's still online. You can find it. And I like really strongly recommend it. She's a brilliant writer. She's also very funny, which you do see a little bit in the article, but I think you'll really see in the interview even more.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other question that she raised, that is one that so many people are grappling with, is when is the time to leave, right? I think we say, there's no such thing. Nobody ever says my Jewish grandparents left Germany too early. But, I think this interview puts a particularly fine point on that question. It's I think that a lot of people are facing moral quandaries, and we like to see these situations as black and white. And I mean, I still like to think that we can all agree that Nazis are bad, but I know that that's a controversial statement now. And oh, I miss the good old days when we could all agree that Nazis were bad. But anyway,
yeah,
yeah, interesting dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also the thing that I say this all the time, but when do you decide that it's time to go, like you said? So the famous Billy Wilder quote, or that's attributed to him, is the optimist went to Auschwitz and the pessimist have swimming pools in Hollywood. And I think that really sort of sums up her grandfather's story as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a story of like, there are so many people who are clinging to hope, and there are so many people who are just like hoping that things will magically turn around. And I really, and actually, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit in the interview too. But for me, it's like, no, what is the real path back to a good place? And like, I mean, it's, I don't think that we can lean on corporate Democrats here, right? Or the Democratic leadership, however you define them. I think that progressives like Mamdani are one of the only paths back to a decent country that the United States has, and the Democratic leadership has not done a good job of embracing them and understanding that like this is the path forward, and hasn't done a good job of fighting back against Trump. It's like, Schumer, you write a really nice, strongly worded letter, but like that's
so
not
much of this argument is actually so much of this argument is caught up in the question of support for Israel and anti-Semitism, and it's very complex. I mean, it feels like the Democratic establishment is working very hard to get rid of progressives, of course. Although I think we can all agree, as I think you said earlier, that rape is sort of a no-go zone. So we're not
talking about Graham Plattner, by the way.
Graham Plattner, right. So, yeah, exactly. Yes. But I mean, there are a lot of people accusing the Democratic establishment of suppressing the voters' intentions, but the Democratic establishment is accusing progressives of anti-Semitism. So it's sort of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah. Well, and
I'm really curious what Laura has to say about this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of like, did you see that Mamdani has like super high rates of approval among Jewish Americans?
Not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. Not surprising at all, but interesting. Yeah.
So again, our interviewee this episode is going to be Laura Moser. She's a journalist. She's a really brilliant writer. She is the author of that 2021 article in the New Yorker about her return to Germany. And I'm very proud to say she's a friend of mine. We both ran for Congress in 2018, and we met at an event in Houston and became fast friends. So I'm really excited to have Laura on the podcast today.
Too broken here to turn it around, so I'm looking overseas for a new hometown, and it's time.
Very thrilled to have with us today Laura Moser. She's a writer based in Berlin. And you've heard a little bit about her background already and about how I know Laura. And we're very excited to have her here. And she's a really excellent writer. And I do encourage you to check out her work. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you for having me, Jana. It's always fun to chat.
Yeah, nice.
We saw each other recently in Amsterdam.
You're right, we did.
Kind of what got this in motion, I guess.
Well, actually, the thing that got it in motion is that I just happened to find your article, and I was like, I was like, oh, that's a super interesting article. And I was like, that's Laura. My Laura wrote
You
that.
were there for part of the drama. Yeah, exactly.
I was there for part of the drama. Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
dramatic. Yeah, very dramatic. Yeah.
Actually, do we want to start there?
Yeah, I think that's an okay place to start. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us, I mean, you can talk a little bit about the drama, but we were going to ask you, a lot of Democrats have lost faith that the Democratic leadership can effectively fight fascism and fight for a livable America for working families. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I do. And actually, I know Jana and our politics are not identical at all, but we both believe in the U.S. and we love our country, and we're both
moved
from Texas.
Further to the left, by the way. We probably didn't discuss this.
Oh, you have? Oh, good.
I would say we're probably pretty aligned these days, actually.
Well, I'm really thrilled by like what happened. Some of the DSA victories in New York and Denver, and I think it's whether that applies to the whole country or not. I think it's safe to say that what's been happening for basically my whole lifetime of constantly accommodating the middle, which means the right in the US, is not serving many of us. And in fact, as it is, I think I would say that I moved to Germany in 2020 because I didn't see that there was an opposition party in the US. And so I didn't see that there was any way to stem the bad things that were happening, because no one in power wanted really to stem that, to reverse the issues.
It was
for the Democratic Party, it was all about Trump and fighting Trump. But I have always seen the problems as much deeper than that. And I actually quite think the Democratic Party likes fighting Trump because it makes them feel righteous and they don't have to actually do anything.
Do you think we can vote our way out of fascism?
I don't know. It's very early in the half. I don't know. It's hard to vote, especially where we're from. They've made it hard. I think if there are candidates that really excite people and give people a reason to show up, maybe. We're pretty far along the road, So I think every year it gets harder and harder to, I remember, I guess it was last, January of, God, these years have gone by so slowly in a way. January of 2025, I thought, God, it's going to take, or by March of 2025, I thought it's going to take 20 years to get back to where we were in December, which wasn't great, like Trump's first 3 months in office, like just to undo that and get back to where we were at the end of 2024, which was not a great place for lots of Americans struggling to get by, that it's gonna, just to reach that very sad place will take a lot of work.
Yeah, which we described as a raging dumpster fire.
Yes. So I'm happy to be in Europe myself, but it doesn't help anyone else, which was a decision I made as well.
You talk about in your article, you say the dramatic story of our grandfather's escape from Berlin haunted my childhood. Can you tell us that story?
Sure. I mean, I'm actually sitting in the neighborhood that my grandfather fled in October of 1938. My grandfather was 39, which was the age that I was when Trump was elected for the first time. And he, we had one American-born cousin there was one cousin in the whole family that had American citizenship because she was born in the US, and then the business was wiped out by the San Francisco earthquake. And they came back to Germany. And then anyway, everyone had left and he really, really wanted to stay in Germany. He was a lawyer. I've spent years going over his papers and his files in the reparations bureau here. And the only thing that was really clear to me was that he really wanted to stay in the city that he'd made his life. And then one day he was walking out of his office right down the street from here. And a friend who was a Nazi who he'd grown up with said, you can't go home today. Like, do not ever go home. You have to get on the first train to Amsterdam. And he already had his visa to the US and he'd had it for quite a while, but for whatever reason wasn't leaving. And he said, but what about my mother? Like, I'm in charge of my mother. And he said, go to the train. I still get choked up. Like, I've heard this story my whole life, but he said, just go to the train. I'll get your mother. He met his mother on the platform. They left that day, never came back to Europe again. And it's also my brother, as you know, lives in the Netherlands and has for 20 years. And so he docked, at Rotterdam and went to Ellis Island and then spent 5 years. He ended up in Houston after 5 years because his brother who'd fled a year earlier, had a job at a hardware store there. And that's why we're Texan, basically.
And what made you decide to move back to Germany, let alone the same neighborhood where your grandfather lived?
Well, the neighborhood was a coincidence because I just found, because actually we didn't know really where he lives until I started doing the research. I mean, we had a broad idea this was a very Jewish kind of bourgeois neighborhood, but I just found through a friend of a friend an apartment that happens to be really 8 minutes from his apartment. But I guess there was part of I wrote about this in my story, but there was part of, Germany was always this missing piece in my family history because my grandfather died 20 years before I was born. And it was just like many people who survived terrible things. He also fought for Germany in World War I. It just wasn't really talked about much. My father it's a very kind of stereotypical American Jew of a certain generation who refused to come to Germany.
Yeah.
And so I was always just really curious about it. But I also think I was interested in fascism and how good countries go bad. And I wanted to find out about my family, but I also wanted to find out how countries change, and this was just this big, I speak French, my Spanish is okay. I spoke no German. It didn't make sense in lots of ways for us to live here, but I just felt like at this time in history, this was the place I wanted to be in. It's also, Berlin's quite cheap and they're good schools and it's got a high standard of living in lots of ways. But I think I had this kind of, I would say I had a spreadsheet, but I'm not really a spreadsheet type, but I looked at all these places that we could conceivably live. And this one I thought, I really feel like right now this is where I want to be. And my husband agreed. Yeah. Or my dad calls it a de-Ellis Islandizing, to go back to our metro station is 1 block from where he boarded, it's 1 stop on the S-Bahn from where he left country. And I've now lived here. Next month will be 6 years. This apartment's the longest place I've lived anywhere since I grew up, since I went to college. And it feels like home, even though my German is far from perfect. It really has started over the last year to feel like I could die here, I could live the rest of my life here.
But don't you think that Germany is safer for Jews than so many places in the world? Because the Germans have really, they're very educated about their past and about
I don't think they're very educated about their past.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No. I think they're educated in a very literal sense, like they have monuments and we in the US don't have monuments, but they don't really understand Jews as living beings with opinions. And that's been really clear since October 7th. I'm an anti-Zionist. I think very early on. I thought pretty early, they're going to really they're going to kill a lot of Palestinians. And what's happened since October 7th to me constitutes a genocide. And it makes me, but Germany constantly deplatforms Jewish, even lots of people with Holocaust background, whose families died in the camps. We're constantly being told that our views are illegitimate. And and the people who determine all policy for this type of question tend to be descendants of Nazis who just really, they only think of Jews as victims and on platforms. And on these Denkmal, on, the monuments, but it's hard for Germans to conceive of Jews as people who are still around. But I have this amazing community that I found of kind of left-wing Israelis and Americans and German Jews who we've all just ended up here. For a lot of us have the passports. It's for the similar reasons to how I came, who've built our own world. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's safer. You can't really protest for Palestinian rights here, which is
interesting.
Well, there's a big debate, isn't there, between what's anti-Semitism and what's anti-Israel, and with a lot of people having very different opinions about.
But I would say the German establishment really doesn't. There's not a lot of nuance. This is true in a lot of aspects of German life. The more I live here, they don't allow for that nuance. they think I went to this, they have these things called anti-Semitism czars in Germany, and they're paid like so much money to just go around talking about anti-Semitism, and none of them are Jewish. And I went to a speech I made early in my time here, and my German wasn't so as good as it is now. It's not that great now, but he said, if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And I said, excuse me, sir, like I am a Jew whose family was run out of this country by your relatives, presumably. Some, am I not allowed to criticize Israel? And he said, that is anti-Semitic. They have it's scientifically proven. They said wissenschaftliche Forschung, like scientific research establishes that all criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. And I mean, I'm from Texas. Like I'm not from Israel. It's not my homeland. Like I'm as critical of it. I mean, I do feel a bit more of a responsibility to speak out against it because I'm Jewish, but no one in my family has lived in Israel since 1948. I get along with some Israelis because I tend to get along with Jewish people, but I have no connection to it. I don't feel, but I also feel like I have a right to speak out because I am Jewish. And when people who are not Jewish are saying what's right or wrong, they just don't. And I thought, I want your job. Can I get 120,000 euros tax free a year to like go around telling people about what Jews are, but
Wow.
No one's offered. So.
Well, I nominate you.
Yeah. I'll take everyone out to dinner.
Actually, on that note, one of the big concerns that our clients have is about anti-Semitism in Europe and that it'll be worse than anti-Semitism in the US. You've talked a little bit about your experience, but can you talk comparatively about what that's looked like?
I mean, I don't think it's not necessarily, it's just a different, no, it's not anti-Semitic. Like you don't walk around feeling, I think in that sense, Germany, like people aren't, at least not in central Berlin. I mean, as in the US, and there's a lot of kind of, like, I do not feel unsafe as a Jew. I feel much safer in Germany in general because it takes like 6 years to get a gun here. Like they make everything really hard. And that's really good when it comes to crime. But no, I just feel like the discourse here, it's kind of paternalistic in telling Jews what they can think, but I don't feel, my thing that I also wrote in the article is I feel like people, if you study World War II as extensively as I have, like the Holocaust would not have happened if people had jobs, if Germany had industrialized in a slower way and if there weren't this inflation and the depression. And, I do feel like there's really desperate people in the US. And I felt that I left during the pandemic. And I was at HEB in Houston and there were like, no, there's nothing on the shelves, and someone came in with like a truck delivered these Clorox wipes and it was, and I felt like this is dangerous. Like people in America have nothing to lose. No one has healthcare. People are just dying of COVID in emergency room waiting rooms. And I was like, I feel that something is going to like burst. And I still kind of feel that way in the US, that there's just this tension because of the wealth gap, the income gap, and people just don't have a lot to lose. And I feel like that's what leads to, revolution.
Laura,
Yes.
what do your family now think about living in Berlin? I read the part about your son saying he chose America, that in the end he would choose to be American versus German and would choose to live in America versus Europe. Is that still the case, or how has that moved on? Like, what are your family's feelings towards living in Germany?
You mean my family in America or the family?
Your immediate family, your children and your husband.
It's interesting because I wrote that so early in my life here, and my son just never really, he's 17 now and he's actually in Houston with my family, with my parents, because he really, I think in a way, if he lived in the US, and I think he probably will, he'll kind of realize some of the reasons that we lived here. But, growing up in Texas, like you drive around in big cars and you have fried chicken and you know what I mean? It's really, he's really into rap. He really just didn't want to learn German, which has been an issue in school for us. But I think he probably will choose, I think he will choose the US for his, but
Does that mean you have to pay
But
for U.S. education for his university instead of free German?
Hell no. I don't know if he'll go to free German or if he'll go to a Dutch university or like, I don't know. He's not super preoccupied with that question, to put it mildly, but no, I'm not paying for him to go to, it's crazy. I've saved since he was born. And when I moved here, I kind of reduced, I was saving, I mean, never much, $250 a month at the peak. And then I reduced it to like 25 because I was like, oh, well, and it doesn't add up. I'm so proud of how much I've saved for my kids' education. And it's not even,
not for the US, it's not enough. Right.
No, I mean, I don't even think I've managed to save for a whole year for either kid. And my dad always says my brother's first semester at a private university, his food, the line item for his food, just the cafeteria bill for one semester was more than my dad paid to go to Rice and UT Law School. Total price of 7 years of education. And so in Germany, it's 195 euros a semester. And I did a fellowship at a university here, and it came with a student ID. And I was like, and I took classes there, and I'm still enrolled. And I took Italian, because it's 195 euros a semester, and it includes a travel card, which would be 60 euros a month. So I just it's as good as any school I've been to. And I'm like, I'm not doing any classes right now, but I'm like, as long as they send me that re-enrollment thing, it's great. I was really shocked because just by how high quality the teaching was and how smart the students were. And the other thing that's great about Berlin and in any capital is you don't really have to be, I mean, I love speaking German and I wish I were better at it, but you don't really have to speak it at all. So I'm always like, oh, come on, speak German to me. But like most of the Germans in Berlin started learning English in third grade, and their German is better than their English is better than my German, but I'm actually one of those annoying people who wants to,
It's similar here in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
If you try to speak Dutch to a Dutch person, they'll be like, ugh.
Yeah, they hear your accent and they're just,
And your mistakes.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about your journey and your family's journey learning German? Like, how was that? How has that been?
Well, I did it a lot. I mean, it's hard. I was 43 when I started, and I did it a lot during the pandemic. I mean, there's so many. I did classes on Zoom, basically. I did one month class before we came here in August 2020, and the shutdown happened in October. So in September, I did like an in-person class, and I made all these friends, and it's cool. Even on the Zoom classes, you meet people from all over the world, and I've met them in person, and I just, I don't know if Dutch is the same where you do A1, A2, B1, B. Yeah. And I just, I kind of miss it. And I signed up for a class. I'm really busy with work right now. And I signed up for a class, like a conversation class. And I went twice because it was I was like, I want to do it in person. Well, I've been like B2 to C1 for like a long time, but I can't really get.
It's great though.
Yeah.
I'm not fluent, but I can do. But I really was to be fluent. I would really have to do a lot, and so I signed up for this class, and it was. I also, at my level, I don't. Anyway, there's lots of. I did Preply for a while, where it was just me and this Viennese woman who lived in Italy who taught, private. Because my thing with doing conversation classes with foreigners is that we all make the same mistakes. And I'm like, no, I want to be I had a tandem partner who moved to Stuttgart, but it was for a while, we really met every week in this coffee shop and talked for an hour, and it was great. But I've sort of like the problem with once you live in a place for a while, you figure out ways to make your life work without necessarily expanding your knowledge of the language. And so I signing up for this class, it was I don't know if they have them it's called the Volkshochschule here, which is like the People's University, and they're very cheap classes. But because it was cheap, I kept finding ways never to go.
Right.
Yeah.
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 And I did also, what's it called? Lingoda last year, which I really liked, where it's like online. Yeah, but I have to decide to be, I mean, what I would really like to do, I have a friend, an Australian friend who, she's lived here less time than me, but she got a job in German. I mean, she's a real, and she just had this period garden site, like between jobs, where she just went to a place for 2.5 months every day and all day, and then started this job in German, and her German went, I mean, I watched it go from my level to like fluent, like, you know, and, but I would love to have that 2.5 month period, or even a month, where I can just go every day, because I love it. It's also nice to be, as an older person, like I love learning new things at my age. I think it's obviously good against dementia and stuff, but I also just think it's like, it makes me feel like a kid again. Like I had flashcards, which are like in a bag under my bed probably, but you know, I really liked being, and I read when I go to the hairdresser, I read the like royalty you know, those terrible magazines. I know they have them in Holland too, where it's just like, what is minor European royalty up to this week? And it'll, and I like reading them, but I'm just quite lazy. When you're raising a family and working and just living life, I've gotten quite lazy. And I'm not getting any younger. Neither is my brain. But how are is your Dutch quite good?
Jana's Dutch really good about. Well, I don't really know what level it is at. Maybe B1, but I was told it was B1 like 6 months ago, and I've really been speaking a lot of Dutch, and I've been taking lessons, but I've never really tested, so I don't know, and I can't really write Dutch. I speak it all the time. I make a point of continuing to speak Dutch, even when people speak English back to me.
Right.
I just keep speaking Dutch, and they will eventually switch back to Dutch.
Right.
So I probably get more practice than a normal person who's working in English all day and who's speaking to their partner in English. But I speak it a lot, and I'm very happy. I don't mind if I make mistakes. I just keep speaking it. So I think that really
I don't either. I go through like periods where like I'm having my daughter's bat mitzvah here and I'm talking to people in German, but then it was like, she's having a dinner and I'm like, not totally sure if alcohol is included in what I've agreed to pay. I think it is, but you know, it's one of those things where I'm like, that makes a big difference. And I don't want to, like, I said, so should we bring alcohol? And he was like, why would you bring alcohol? We're a restaurant. And I was like, okay. And I think it's included, but I'm like, shit, if I like, I'm also a little more nervous to ask for clarifications because it makes me feel like they think they've already said it. Whatever they've said, they've said it. And I'm like, I don't like seeming like I've missed big things, although I do all the time. But I did just like, I'm pretty sure it's included, but I just had this long conversation where we did the menu and I was like feeling great. And then I left. I was like, should I have really? Because then I thought, well, if I ask him if the alcohol, I think he thinks I think it's included. So if I'm saying like, oh, how much extra is alcohol, then maybe he could just say,
charge you.
And then I'm screwed. So So you have those moments in not being quite fluent where you miss some things that it's not ideal, but but I like and the thing about writing also is when I first moved here, like Google Translate was a thing, but it wasn't what it is now. And I
really
would
good
type
now.
out, it's like, I'm never going to write in paper in German. Like if I have to make my kids a doctor's appointment, I just type it in English. And I used to really try to get it right and then check it. But I'm like, it takes 5 seconds to type it in English versus 15 minutes in German.
I can't write in Dutch. It's
really
I mean,
hard. I used to do in these classes, like you had to do writing assignments and presentations, and I would do them honestly. But now it's just like, you don't really, I mean, that part I don't, if I were like a university student, but I don't really think that I need to write in German. But I would like to speak better. I mean, just the technology is so good. It's sad, but also life is busy, you know.
I mean, I think that you're right about the translation technology. When I spent the winter in Italy, and I really don't speak any Italian at all to speak of. I mean, I can like order in a restaurant basically, and that's about it. And I just constantly used Google Translate. I would just like push the thing and hold it up to someone, and
Yeah.
they would say it in Italian, then I'd read it, be like, okay, that was, or I'd say it in English and show it to them.
Yeah, and everyone's
Or-
pretty
It's so easy.
yeah, I will say this is so embarrassing, but I started doing Italian on Duolingo two years ago, and I was just in Italy, and I was like, I've kind of learned some Italian, so.
They're very friendly if you try. Yeah. So.
Yeah, they don't care. They're happy to work with you. And actually, Germans are quite good. They're quite nice too. They like how difficult German is, so they feel kind of superior when you make mistakes, but they're nice about it.
That's
Whereas,
good.
like,
That's
French
good.
people
But
aren't
you're
always.
not as nice about it.
Dutch.
No. The Dutch is
No.
very efficient, and it's like,
Yeah.
you are wasting my time with your pathetic attempts to speak Dutch.
When I actually sound like I'm from Illinois when I'm talking.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Well, and I think part of it is, it's probably the same for them as it is for me, right? Like when I want to practice my Dutch, I'll speak in Dutch. If I want to communicate, I'll speak in English,
Yeah, and I've gotten quite lazy. Like I used to, when I first moved here, I went to physical therapy and I really didn't speak German, and the woman didn't speak English. And it was great, actually, because it wasn't that important. And then I went to my gynecologist for the first time, and I was like, well, I speak okay German. And she was like, do you know what? A doctor's office is not a place for learning. Like, she was like, we're here to talk about your body, not like, she's like, and her English is perfect, of course,
Wow.
and I was like, it's good,
That's hilarious.
And I just thought that was like, okay, totally. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
This was fascinating for me, and I think it
It's
was
fun.
for
I always
you
love
too.
talking to you.
Yeah, really nice. Really nice. So, but thank you so much, Laura,
course.
for joining us today. It was so lovely to hear all of your insights into life in Germany and being an American immigrant to Germany.
Thank you so much for having me. It was
Really
great
love
to
it.
meet all
Thank
of you.
And we'll let you know as soon as
Stay in
it's up.
touch. Yes. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Laura. Bye.
At GTFO Tours, we help Americans get out of the U.S. through relocation tours and coaching. We help folks through your whole journey. We can help you figure out which countries you can or would want to move to. We coach you through the process, and we have a global network of experts who can help you with the nitty-gritty details of a given country. In the Netherlands, we are those experts, so we can answer all of your questions about life here, walk you through the bureaucracy, connect you to experts as needed. We also do relocation tours, taking you to cities where you might want to live, teaching you things about visas and taxes and all of that other bureaucracy, and also introducing you to other dafters and the GTFO communities. You can book a consult with us at gtfotours.com.
And here's Bain with our news story for today.
Today's story comes from etias.com. Investors in Portugal's Golden Visa have sued the Portuguese government because the government increased the path to citizenship from 5 to 10 years, including for folks who had already invested hundreds of thousands into this path. The outcome of this case could impact Golden Visa or investor visas in a number of European countries. All right, what do y'all think about that?
I think the path to investors coming to Europe and getting passports is getting very tricky. It's much harder now to do that than it was 10 years ago. And I also find it very ironic that Trump did his what is it, black card or whatever, that he's selling U.S. citizenship for $5 million. I mean, I can't believe anybody wants that, but okay. So I think in
rich
general,
people have brown skin too. Like,
right? But the thing is that it's getting harder and harder. But a lot of Europeans don't find it at all fair that rich people are coming in and buying up houses and investing money in a way that's making it more expensive for them to live, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Portuguese government really, I would not say, has not handled this particularly well, because they offered this thing. They have massive backlogs in their application processes, both going out of the US on sort of the temporary visa that you need, and then to get a long-term visa. We actually have clients who have moved to the Netherlands because they had been in Portugal for a couple of years and just still didn't have a long-term visa and were fed up with it. But particularly my understanding is that particularly recipients of the golden visa were put basically at the back of the line. So people, it's supposed to be a 90-day window, but they had been waiting for 5 years. And so I think, you know, there are bureaucracy is different in different countries. And so I think one of the big things that we often keep an eye on for our clients is what does the backlog look like in the country that you're thinking about going to? You know, Mexico, Spain, Portugal, all of these countries have huge backlogs of Americans trying to get into these countries. And I think in the investor visa case, like Portugal really bungled it. Because the other thing is like, originally, the reason that Portugal has been so popular with so many Americans was because it used to be you could just buy a house and get a visa. And then also,
in 5 years, you would get a passport.
5 years to get a passport. And then the other piece of it was that they had advantageous tax rates. And they've gotten rid of a lot of those. You no longer can invest in any kind of property, which I think is silly, to be honest. Because if you have this big influx of people who are actually moving to your country, then increasing your housing supply makes sense. But my understanding is that they were investing in luxury properties, which is not what people needed in Portugal. It was really just driving up the cost of housing. But yeah, the cost of living has gone up in Portugal, and then they've gotten rid of some of the tax advantages of being in Portugal.
Which countries still have investor visas? I know Greece, Italy, and well, obviously Portugal and Cyprus. Do we know of other countries that have?
Malta is one of the big ones.
Malta, of course. Yeah.
That's one of the ones that we work. I mean, I think, you know, for people
who clients to Malta. Yeah.
Oh, I've sent a bunch of clients to Malta because I think for clients who are that wealthy, who are wealthy enough that it makes sense to get an investor visa, the big question that we look at is, what is your fastest path to citizenship? Because then you can live anywhere in Europe. Are you sick of the drama of living and dating in the US? Maybe it's time to look for love elsewhere. Join our Move Abroad to Find Love tour this September, where you'll discover just how full of hot people the Netherlands is. Our Move Abroad to Find Love tour will include our regular relocation tour, plus a photo shoot for your dating profiles, a day trip to the wine region around Maastricht, networking and speed dating events, and more. We'll also have a companion coaching program because there are fuckwads everywhere, and we'll show you how to avoid them and attract the people you actually want to attract. Our coaching program will be working with Dr. Deb Berman, and it will be based on the coaching program that I did before I met my now husband. Our Move Abroad to Find Love tour will run from September 19th to the 27th. You can sign up today at gtfotours.com/loveabroad or email us at info@gtfotours.com to learn more.
Okay, now we're going to take a listener question. Bain, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Jana. Well, we have a question from Tad from New York. I want to move my family to the Netherlands, but I've heard there is a housing crisis. How can I make sure to get housing?
Yeah, and that is such an important question and really one of the biggest issues that folks who move here face. The short answer is work with a real estate agent or a makelaar, as they're called here. They will talk to you about what the application process is. You'll probably have to put together sort of a pitch of yourself, information about your family and your income, and they will help you put together sort of your pitch for potential landlords. The other thing to be aware of is that because of the housing crisis, one of the ways that entrepreneurs in particular and American entrepreneurs are getting housing here is by putting up to a year's rent down in advance, in addition to a 2-month security deposit and a 1 month's rent to pay your real estate agent. So be aware that that is one of the barriers, I would say, to coming to the Netherlands is that upfront cost. But that said, once you've paid rent for the first year, you don't have to pay rent for the first year. So yeah.
I would just add just really quickly that it's not even, you could still offer a year's rent and you still might not get the apartment. There is fierce competition and there are often hundreds of people in the first hour. that an ad goes up for a housing or for an apartment or a house who want that apartment. So you really have to work with somebody who can get you one of the first 5 slots to look at the apartment or house.
Yeah, and if you have a good makelar, sometimes you don't need to pay a year up front. For me, for example, we paid 6 months up front and got it at asking price. So it really depends on who you have working for you and your unique situation.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and I would say, don't try to do it. I would highly recommend not trying to do it by yourself. Trying to get an apartment in the Netherlands is a full-time job, and professionals are going to be better at it than you are. So I think people try. That's one of the ways that I see people like failing in the Netherlands is they think they're going to try to find their own place without a real estate agent, and they're not able to.
And also having a realistic budget.
Yeah.
Like you've got to really understand what you're going to have to pay for housing.
Yeah. There are a number of places in the process where having a professional on your side is really important. I think it's really important to be able to, if you are applying blind, if you're not submitting a request within the first 30 minutes, hour, you're not going to get in. But if somebody has those relationships, they can, ask, later in that process for you, or at least, maybe up to a day after the listing goes up. They also usually will talk to the listing agent to get a sense of what the place is actually going to go for. And if there's anything else that you can do to get a leg up. So it's very important. Or if anything goes wrong with the process, I believe that they often will work with you to make sure that things get fixed up. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ted, for your question. And also, if anybody else has questions for us, please feel free to send them to info@gtfotours.com. And I promise to read my email.
If you have been posting consistently for months and still have no idea if any of it is actually bringing in customers, you are not doing it wrong. You are doing it without a strategy. Most small business owners are spending real time and real money on social media that is not converting. The content looks fine, the effort is there, the system underneath it is not. This is what we fix at Bangkok Media. We offer conversion-focused social media management and social media strategies, a 30-plus page data-backed document built specifically for small business owners. And it's jam-packed with research, suggestions, and best practices relevant to your market. It will have everything you need to run your social media the right way and actually see results. Link in the description.
Thanks for joining this episode of Let's GTFO with Bethany and Jana. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you again next week.
Well, you know what time it is. Well, I packed my bags, maybe I'll see you later. 'Cause when a president can turn into a dictator, it's time, to get the fuck out. Oh, it's time to get the fuck out. Yeah, it's time to peace out.